Good afternoon and welcome, everyone. So today, as some of our past Mastermind sessions are Q&A sections. So what I'd like you to do, if any of you have any questions relating specifically to social media, please feel free to post them in the chat at the bottom of the screen, and then I'll get Marco as we go along to answer these questions. For those of you that haven't met me before, my name is Andrew Patricio, and I'm a business owner. And I've been hosting these webinars and masterminds for the last year, and we'll keep hosting these and educating you as we go along. Marco, just want to say something? Marco, you introduce yourself?
Definitely can. Sorry, I was just making sure my internet was stable there. Hi. So to those of you who don't know, we have done a lot of these together collectively. So those who haven't been to one, who don't know before, my name is Marco Patricio. I'm a strategist. I'm a copywriter. I work with small businesses just like yours to help you sort of get a leg up in the market to compete with the bigger businesses, which is becoming increasingly difficult. But we have been running these masterminds to sort of go through the tips that you need to know how to do that. So today is an opportunity for you to ask me any questions that you might have. We have the Q&A box down below. We also have the chat box. And I know that you are here because you have questions. So if you have any questions, put them down. We do have some questions that we've collected, I believe, from questions that people have asked in advance. But if you have any questions that are specific to your business or specific to problems that you are trying to solve right now, that is really what these events are about. So do not hesitate to ask them.
Okay, carry on.
I was going to say, so if you can start with some of those, any questions that we have that people have already asked us.
All right, wonderful. And I encourage you, as Marcus said, if you've got any questions, just post them into the chat or the Q&A section and we'll answer them. So let's just start off with a very generalized question that I received, and often small business owners ask, Marco, what are your thoughts on the current social media landscape? What's happening? What should we know about? And what do you think we should understand about the current situation?
I think things certainly, obviously, as the entire field has grown, the size of the opportunity has grown in some ways, but shrunk in others. I think, we've seen social media in the past, obviously from the origins, that is very grassroots, that is very one-to-one connection. And now, as more people are coming into it, as there's really a density of people there, most of the world at this point is on social media, at least in the Western world. And so we're seeing higher amounts of competition. We're seeing in every category, more people competing for the same amount of eyeballs, but at the same time, more time spent on all of these social media platforms. So there's generally a rising of the ships, equal opportunity for everyone, and also a massive influx of potential. But I would say the main trend that we're seeing, and something that's probably going to come up a lot today, is things becoming more algorithmic. So things depending more and more on, because there's so much data in the system, and because these social media channels have now gone to a more recommendation system, how are we going to show people content that they're interested in? And so obviously the algorithms are the ones that solve this problem. And so a lot of what social media is today is really about trying to work out, to connect with the people that are either in your local community or, people that are your customers, almost in spite of, where the algorithm wants to put your content. So that is one of the biggest challenges that a lot of small businesses are going to be facing now.
And what are your thoughts? Do you think it's easier now to connect with people on social media, or more difficult now to connect with people on social media?
I think that's a great question. I think that, when people are thinking about social media, I actually like the way that you asked the question, because it's the correct way to ask it, which is it easier to connect with people? Certainly, it is much easier to connect with people. That doesn't mean that it's any easier to convert them into customers necessarily, let's say, but it is definitely much, much easier to connect with people that might be interested in your brand, to connect with people that might be interested in your hobby, to connect with people that, have a similar interest in your area. So these things are incredibly easy to do. So it almost becomes about, what do you do after then? What do you do after you have found all the people in your area that might be your customer? What do you do after you have found everyone on the internet who is interested in the same hobby as you? And a lot of the answers to those questions are going to be the same as they would be, thankfully, in the real world, in brick and mortar businesses. What do you do if there's, a community event where a lot of people are going to come? How do you capitalize on that? And so the real question now is not, is it easy to find people there? Because we all know that, it's easy to connect with people all over the world on social media. The question becomes, how do you capitalize on that? And how do you bring those people from, just being people that you're connected with into opportunities?
And also, what are your thoughts on, some of the new social media, stuff that's, not new, but been around for a while, things like TikTok and, the changes that are taking place, interestingly, at Twitter and things like that. What are your thoughts on those new social medias and the advantages and disadvantages for small business?
I definitely think that, the newer social medias are much more intelligent at captivating people, basically. So TikTok, a really, really advanced system that ensures that when you're on the platform, you're seeing things that you really enjoy. That is, the goal of that business, and they're incredibly successful at it. And of course, that provides an opportunity, because if you are creating content that people do want to see, that's the one caveat, especially on TikTok, then they will service that content to people. They will do that work for you. So it's almost an inversion of what we used to see before on, the Facebooks and the Twitters and all of these things, where you would try very hard to build your own audience because you knew that that's the only way you could guarantee that people would be seeing your content. On platforms like, TikTok, even sorry, not Tumblr, but yes, Tumblr, but Pinterest and these sort of things. What they care about most is keeping people engaged and keeping people interested. So it's a massive opportunity for small businesses because it's one of the first times where it's almost been a true meritocracy, where the amount of people who see your content doesn't matter on how much, credibility you already have, or how much money you have, or any of these things. It really depends entirely on how good are you at entertaining audiences, how good are you at providing things that people want to watch and will stick around to watch. So I think there's a massive opportunity, and we've seen this play out so many times. There's entire businesses that have started purely on TikTok, for example, because they've found and maintained an audience. And really that, platform and platforms like that will accelerate your content far, far beyond, your local community, or people that you would even target, if you were to buy a Facebook ad, for example. And again, the question becomes, is not, can you get in front of these people? Because we've seen it a million, 1,000 times when it comes to TikTok, that you certainly can. The question really becomes, how do you start capitalizing on that as a small business?
One of the common questions we get asked regularly by small business owners is, how do you get your customers off these platforms? Whether it's Facebook, whether it's Instagram or other platforms, how do you get people to actually buy from you? Do you have any strategies or any ideas that we can use to get people to actually buy our stuff once they've connected with us on social media?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great question. I think that's the correct question to be asking, because, that's really the way that you should be thinking about it. I think, we come from a time where so many of the brands that I used to work with were very obsessed with sort of the what we call vanity metrics, right? Like, how do I get 100,000 followers, or how do I get X, Y, and Z, right? And so what we're focusing on now is not, how do I get all these followers? What you're asking is, well, what does that mean? How do I get these followers to become customers? And the real thing that we need to be doing is attempting to bring these people off the social media platforms where there's a density of them and bringing them into our own ecosystems. There's a number of reasons that we'd want to do that. Primary of which being, especially on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok even. So on Facebook and Instagram, you're paying to get access to your audience, which doesn't really make sense because you've built that audience. So they control how much of your audience sees your content. So you obviously don't have direct communication with them. And even on TikTok, the likelihood that your content will show up in somebody's feed, even if they're following you, is still, very minute. So the real question is, how do you go from maybe having the opportunity to communicate with somebody who is interested in what you're doing to how do you actually have a direct line of communication? And so what we want to be doing generally is have a pipeline set up for that. The one that I would recommend usually is emails. You need to be doing this already. So if you have a strong email flow for your customers, if you have regular offers or news or newsletters or whatever it might be, how do you bring people into that? So one of the things that you can do in an attempt to sort of filter people from where you have an audience into your own communication systems where you can email them as much as you want, is to do things like running promotions, for example, or doing special discounts. I think now we have Black Friday coming up. It's a great opportunity to offer something specifically, which I've seen a lot of, to open your sales up earlier. So have the same sales, but open up the sales earlier to people who are, signed up to your newsletter. So you say, there's a lot of really great deals that we're doing. We're going to give you access 24 hours earlier if you sign up for our newsletter right now. So it's these small things where you're not actually sacrificing anything as a brand because you were already offering that deal, but it's just giving an incentive to get people off those platforms and into your control. And another reason that we want to do that, again, is because what does it mean to have 100,000 followers? Does that mean that there's 100,000 people who, really like your product and would buy your product? Or does it mean that there's 100,000 people who really like the photos that your social media person posts, So it sort of brings it down to that brass tacks of, when you start trying to bring people off your platform, not only do you gain more control over how you can communicate with them, and obviously, you can sell to them more directly. If you have somebody's email and the pretense of getting their email is, hey, we will give you a deal that you can take advantage of immediately, that is going to convert way more successfully than if you just posted a random Instagram story that said, hey, go buy our product, right? So it sort of whittles down your audience into people who are serious about becoming your customer. And then it allows you to take charge and to, put them through your funnel to do whatever it is that you need to do in order to convert them into customers. So I think any offer or any opportunity, so giveaways are a good idea. Again, Black Friday is a perfect opportunity to do early access sales, but you can do that any time of the year. Or even just, I've signed up to a lot of emails on social media simply because I didn't know that there was an interesting email list that existed. So there's a guy out of Germany who does a newsletter called Runner's Highest, and he collects all the new products in the running community for that week. And he just sends out an email every Sunday that just says, here's 5 new products that I really like that came out. Here's new shoes and here's new shorts or whatever it might be. And sometimes it's just knowing that there is something that you would enjoy that you are not yet a part of, or a community that you're not yet a part of. Or even if you say, hey, we have a meetup, every Tuesday at our coffee shop. If you want to, find out when the next one is, join our email. Just giving people a little bit of motivation. You're basically giving them a reward. You're saying, hey, if you want this reward, we'll do you a favor. We'll tell you when you can get it, but just give us your email. And people are, very willing to do that, or at very least the people who will be your customers, which are the ones that matter, are willing to do that. So it's a great way to get people off those platforms, which I would argue is an extremely important thing to do, and increasingly more so. Because as we're seeing right now with Twitter, for example, if Twitter blows up and nobody's using it seriously as a legitimate platform anymore, then there's a lot of people who have put a lot of their brand equity into building communities on Twitter that will never be able to access those, 2,000, 10,000, 2 million people that are following them. And so that's just a reminder of how, fickle these things are and why it's so important to actually capture these people into our own communities while we still can.
And I think it's such an important point. I've seen it many times with small business owners. They've got all these people following them, but they're not converting. They're not making any money out of them. They're not connecting with them. And I think this is one of the really key things that I think are important. So here's a couple of questions I'm going to ask that the audience has asked, and I'll ask them as we go along. What email newsletter platforms do you recommend for a solopreneur, so a one-person business, other than MailChimp? Do you have any examples of other platforms other than MailChimp that small business owners can use?
Yeah, so it depends on the nature of the email that you want to be sending, basically. So there's two that are predominant. On more the e-commerce side, Klaviyo is generally the one that people tend to use. It's really reliable. It's an incredibly intelligent platform. You can set up things like email flows that just create sort of a premium experience. So it's those sort of emails where if you sign up for a newsletter, you get an email right away that says, hey, John, thank you for joining our email newsletter. We're so excited that we're here. Here's what you can expect. And it does all of this automatically, which is great. So that's, if you're already set up with e-commerce, and you want to do e-commerce integrations where you can add your products to the emails and those sort of things, then the one is going to be Klaviyo. Klaviyo and all email platforms are priced generally based on the amount of emails that you have. So the amount of people that you are sending an email to. So they all start off relatively cheap is the point of that. So they're based, not on a fixed monthly fee, but on how many people you're actually sending an email out to. So if you're sending an email out to a list of 100 people, it's going to be much cheaper than, somebody who's sending an email out to 10,000 people. So it's a great place to start because it can scale with you. If you're sending just an informational sort of newsletter, if you're a bookstore and you're saying, hey, we are not selling these books online, but here's our top 10 favorite books from the week, for example, Substack is a very good platform for that. Substack, I believe, is free. And it's, there's really good community built around it. The whole idea behind Substack is it's like lo-fi, anybody can do it. Anybody can have a newsletter sort of idea. So if you're using a newsletter that is more interest-based and you're not going to be selling as hard and it's not going to matter, that it's connected to your e-commerce or whatever it might be, then Substack, I think, is the one to use. And just, again, to go over the distinction there, Substack and all of these things will let you collect emails and they'll let you see who has signed up. But Klaviyo will have the additional e-commerce integration where you can email everyone that's ever bought from your store, for example, in addition to new emails that you get. So those things link together very well. But if you're just doing something that's informational, Substack. If you're doing e-commerce, Klaviyo, which is Klaviyo, is going to be the one that I always recommend and that I've used for years.
And we've used Email Octopus. So if you're looking for something really simple and affordable, that's another one that we use. Here's another question about people that offer consulting services. Any ideas on, what content they can put on social that draws people, more to their business and maybe to be buying their stuff?
That is a good question. So the thing that I always say is that what you should be doing as much as possible as a small business is showing people, A, what you do, and B, how they can benefit from what you do. And I think if you're in a situation with consulting, it requires some buy-in from, from your customers that you're working with. But maybe an idea that you can do is literally just posting your case studies, doing a short version of, hey, when we came into this business, this is the problem that they had, and here's how we solved it. It depends on what kind of consulting you're doing, but showing things like before and afters, for example, is really great. at the higher level, there's people like Gary Vaynerchuk, for example, who does consulting, and he films his entire consulting session and then uses little clips out of it that, keep the customer anonymous and all of those things, and uses that to post on social media. So I think, in any consulting service, the thing that you're trying to do is convince people of the value of what it is that you do. And in order to do that, especially on social media, I think you should be showing people the value of what it is that you do. And you don't have to directly say, hey, we were working for ABC brand and they wanted us to do this, and they, and here's what we did, and look at their website or look at their business or whatever. You can also just take insights, from discussions that you had with your customer. And you can say, I was talking to a customer today and they ran into a really interesting problem. So if you're somebody who's running into a problem like that, here's the solution. I think we always want to be thinking on social media, especially now, with the more algorithmic sort of world that we live in, about like why people are going to be interested, why it's going to be useful to people, why would somebody care? And as consultants, if what you're providing essentially is the answer to difficult questions, then it would be a good idea, in my opinion, to have a social media that is giving answers to difficult questions. Even letting people that are following you ask questions and then you answer them. I think that is a very valuable way to show that you're knowledgeable, to show what it is exactly that you do, so that when people come to you, they can be really confident. Or maybe, even people who wouldn't have become your customers before will look at your social media and say, I really like what they do in their content. I really like the way that they solve problems. I really like their framework. I wonder if that can help my business. And that's a great tool for acquiring customers. But I think in most cases, as much as possible, show people what it is that you do, whether you're a service or product or whatever. I think documenting the day-to-day elements of what you are doing day in and day out, and how you're providing value and how other people can get value from that, I think is always going to be a solid strategy.
Yeah, and I think that's a good idea, using video basically to educate people, and to share some of your knowledge is a good idea. Now, do you have any tips on how do we actually get people to follow us on social media? What encourages somebody to follow us on social media? What would encourage somebody to like or to follow us?
Yeah, I think, increasingly, as we're saying, like this algorithmic world, I think, we're so often seeing content. If you go on TikTok, for example, you open up your TikTok and there's all this content from all these creators, and maybe you've seen these creators before, but maybe you haven't. And it's just completely random. And you have no guarantee, actually, when you see somebody's content, if you really like it, whether or not you're going to see it again, essentially. So what someone is saying when they follow our content is they're saying, I would like to see this again. I would like, to tell the platform, as much as possible, please show me this person again. I like what this person is doing or what this brand is doing. So, when we're thinking about how do we get people to follow us, I think number one is create content that is valuable to people, create content that people are going to be interested in, have a reason that people would want to follow us, a reason that people would want to not miss what it is that we're doing next. And on these platforms, there's some engineering of that. So you can do things that say, let's use the consulting example. You can say, I had a customer who had X, Y, and Z issue, and we came up with a great thing to solve it. If you want to find out what the answer is, follow us here and you can see the rest of our videos or whatever. I mean, that's not the strongest strategy, but the point is that you do see those sort of things. In terms of getting people to like you, I mean, a like is a very cheap, easy thing to give away. They go, I like that. But a follow really is going to be someone saying, I am intentionally choosing to see more of this content again. And so ultimately, we need to give people a reason to say that. And I think an important part about that also is we need to make the value proposition extremely easy and simple for customers. So when they find us on a random feed, they need to be able to immediately understand what it is that we do. Who are we? You see this a lot on YouTube that people do very well, where they say, we post videos about the fashion industry every Monday and Wednesday. So they're letting people know exactly what they can expect from this channel. They're saying, if you want to watch this content, here's how often we post it. So, follow us and you can come back for more, sort of thing. So I think social media could often do with a lot more of that, just being very explicit about what it is that your customers can expect. So again, in the consulting example, you could say, we solve our customers' problems and post them here, and we answer customer problems from the feed. If you like that, follow us, basically, is what you're trying to say. But just being very clear on what the value proposition is, and what part of that is being very consistent with the content that you're creating. So we talked about it in the webinar, which was a little bit ago, 2 weeks ago, maybe a week ago. Time feels like it's collapsing a little bit. But it's the daylight saving thing. But we talked about this where, what I recommend to all small businesses is find one kind of content to create. Because if somebody, finds you in a random feed, and again, the whole theme is that feeds are increasingly random. So if someone finds you in a random feed and they click on your page and they were here because they really liked one review that you did of a new shoe, and they show up and all your other videos are about aquariums for goldfish, they're not going to follow you because they're going to be very confused about why they would care about your content. So choosing one sort of, one format of video or one theme of video, and just sort of really drilling down on that and being really consistent on what it is exactly that you do on social media, allows you to be much more easily understood by your customers. And therefore, it's going to encourage them to follow with less hesitancy. They're going to go, okay, I'm definitely going to follow this because this is what I want to see. Whereas being more confusing or not being as consistent, or sort of being what most businesses are, which is like a hodgepodge of here's a video here, and then here's a picture, and here's a customer wearing the product. Unless you're really passionate about a brand, you're not going to follow that. So just being really clear, what can people get out of it? And that's how you're going to get people following more frequently.
Okay, so here's a question from Nama. She says LinkedIn versus Twitter. LinkedIn works really well, but I know that I'm missing a big audience that is on Twitter. How do you recommend to be successful on Twitter with the same type of content? So would you share the same content you're sharing on LinkedIn on Twitter, or would you change the content?
That's a really good question. I think that the first piece of advice that I would always give is that being able to win anywhere is light years beyond what most people are able to achieve for their businesses. So saying like, I'm already doing well on LinkedIn, doing well anywhere on any platform is very rare. So you should be proud of that accomplishment. And what I would encourage you to do maybe is to work out how to max out that one platform rather than, getting a little bit of fear of missing out and saying, well, what can we do on Twitter? So the reason that I give that advice is because LinkedIn is, like we're talking about, one of these algorithmic platforms where everyone is there for the same reason. It's very clear what kind of content is successful. And LinkedIn gives a massive bias to sharing content that people are reacting with, are interested in, et cetera, et cetera. And the reason is because they have a smaller market share than some of these other content platforms. So a smaller number of people are creating the content that people are consuming on LinkedIn. So if you're one of those people that's creating content, LinkedIn is very happy to show that content to people. On Instagram, for example, I'm creating content, you're creating content, your brands are creating content, somebody's posting content of their new child that was just born. It's really dense with competition, whereas LinkedIn, not everyone on there is creating content. Most people on there are not creating content. So I would say you probably have a good thing going because you're already working on an algorithmic platform and you've sort of cracked the code of what that is. So the next question you were asking about how to get on, like what you should do on Twitter is, I don't want to say an incorrect question, but I would say, I think I would investigate and think more broadly about where you can transition that content. And I can't honestly accurately answer that question without knowing specifically what the kind of content is and why it's successful. But I would say maybe go to another algorithmic platform. For example, if you're doing business related content that is maybe educational, I'm just stabbing in the dark here.
Okay. She's an architect and in urban planning.
Oh, amazing. Okay. So sorry, if we can get more context, are you the content that you're posting on educational video? Okay, amazing. Thank you so much. So what I would say is if you're doing educational video, where I would actually double down is other platforms that are also algorithmic and that also have video. So get on Instagram, do Instagram Reels. TikTok is probably not going to be entirely your audience, but again, it's so huge that there's an opportunity there. The reason that I would suggest that actually is that all it requires is that you take the video that already exists, I'm assuming this educational video, and just repurposing it for these platforms, which often in most cases just means changing the aspect ratio and adding subtitles. So you have a backlog of content. You already know what is working for your audience. You already know what's been successful. So you can really start from a strong position saying, I know that people really like this video, which is the opposite of where most creators start, where they go, I don't know what my audience likes and I don't know where to start. You have already done the groundwork to create content that people like. Take that content, put it onto another algorithmic platform, another platform that's going to surface your content to people who are interested in what you are interested in, and then double down on your niche. So you can add, again, to Instagram Reels, you can go to TikTok, make sure you're using those hashtags that get you into whatever, whatever the architecture niche hashtags are, I don't know. But I think that that's a really great opportunity rather than going onto Twitter. And thank you so much for clarifying, because it allows us to have a much better conversation about it. Rather than going onto Twitter, which isn't really pushing content in the way that LinkedIn is in an algorithmic way. It's not surfacing as much random content, let's say, to people in their interest group. It's mostly based on retweets and all of those sort of things. And it requires you to build an audience before people can see your content, which we don't want to do that in 2022. So, so putting it on a platform that is going to surface you to people without you doing, any more work than you've already done. So I think that's really the way moving forward. Depending on what the content is, also, you could do YouTube, you could do YouTube Shorts. I don't know how long these videos are, for example, but you could do compilations on YouTube. YouTube, again, massive search engine. YouTube Shorts is YouTube's algorithmic version of YouTube, where they're basically just throwing content at people. So anywhere where a platform basically is desperate for their customers to enjoy and stay on the platform, which right now is TikTok, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube, I think that's going to work for you. And you're already doing video, so you're already, ready to win. Video truly is the content of the moment. I think it will be of the future also. But you're in a great position. I would say just, maybe try not be on Twitter, also because it seems like Twitter is probably on the decline at the moment. So go for those algorithmic platforms that are going to show content that you already know people like, to people who like it.
All right, here's a question from Emma. If a company is wanting to do a giveaway through some, following or sharing a post, what is the best way to keep track of all the data, that you are getting from this giveaway?
I would say you should always set up a giveaway in a way that is most advantageous for you. what I mean by that is that, there's a lot of ways to do giveaway. You could say like this post or follow us or whatever, but there are some actual legal requirements of what you can and cannot say in a giveaway. Valid. But what I would do if I was doing a giveaway, what I find most beneficial is getting people to submit their email and doing the giveaway through that way. The reason that I would do that is the barrier of entry is higher in a way. If you just say, like this post or follow this account or repost on your story, that's a very transient thing. Someone can like you, and then after the giveaway is over, they unlike you, and then you don't get any additional benefit from that customer. So as always, I like to take these things off platform, set up a little landing page, collect people's emails, and then you have the data forever. You're really keeping track of the data. I think it sounded to me, and I could clarify if I'm incorrect here, but it sounds like you're saying is, if you're doing giveaway and you have a lot of people liking a post or following, how do you keep track of who's liking it? And, can you retarget to them or whatever it might be? Another way of doing it that's slightly more technical, which is why I'm bringing it up second, is that, if you're doing things on, let's say Instagram, you can do, advanced ad targeting for those giveaways. So you can say everyone that's liked this post or everyone that's watched this video or everyone that's shared this post, let's now send them another ad that is based on the fact that they shared or liked this post. But that is going to require somebody with knowledge of those things. So if that's not you and you don't have access to anybody immediately in your team, for example, to do that, I don't think you should feel like, Instagram is, a giveaway is out of reach for you just because you don't know how to use, Facebook pixels or whatever it might be, creating a funnel there. So there are multiple ways to do it. I think the easiest way, and JD is bringing up a great point here, using ClickFunnels. So I think the easiest way really is to, bring people offsite to either, a web sign-up page, those sort of things, or even, use a Facebook chat bot or whatever you need to do, but that's going to log those things forever in a way that's actually making them useful for you. And the reason I suggest that is because if we think about why are we doing a giveaway, for example, so we're saying, okay, why are we doing a giveaway? We're doing a giveaway for, let's say we want to get a lot of followers. Why do we want to get a lot of followers? Because we want a lot of people to buy our product. How are we going to get people to buy our product? It's not by having them follow us. It's by having direct access to communicate with those people. So if our end result is that we want to be able to communicate with these people and convert them into customers, let's just skip that whole middle part and just go straight to, hey, we're doing a giveaway. Give us your email. We will let you know if you've won or not, because that allows you to message those people for the rest of time.
And I think that's very good advice. Very important, to be able to communicate more directly with your customers. And I think that's the key. So we've got a question here from Jonah. She says, we're a uniform supplier and we also provide custom branded apparel. If I'm trying to get my content in front of decision makers, which platforms would you recommend? So it's uniform supplier and custom branded platform.
That is a really good question. I think LinkedIn brands themselves as sort of the platform for decision makers. That's who they say they are. I think to some degree that's true. I think in the universe of people who are making important decisions, the majority of those people in corporate environments are going to be on LinkedIn. I do not personally know the degree of specificity that you can advertise or target on LinkedIn. I would imagine that you can do it by job title, for example. So I think really it's going to depend on what information you know about these people. So if you know that it's always the same person with the same job title that is making the same decisions about who is and isn't purchasing uniforms, and you can target based on that. I think because that's such a niche. Thank you, JD, letting me know that you can target job titles and roles in LinkedIn boosts. So I think, that if you know specifically who it is that you are talking to, and you don't need, an algorithm to sort of surface those people, because I think it would take a long time for algorithms to work out, in my personal opinion, who's into uniform content, uniform purchasing content, custom apparel content. But I do think that there is other opportunities on the custom apparel side, to sort of look at who are your customers primarily for that, and who, might be an opportunity target group. I can give you an example. I get, just off the top of my mind, for custom apparel, I'm training for triathlons and, marathon running and all of these things. And I always get team-based custom triathlon outfit ads. Okay. I'm not a person that makes decisions for a team, but I can understand the logic in the marketing, which is that most people who are doing this sport are part of a team, regardless of whether or not they are the ones that are making decisions about the team. So if I see a really good uniform that I think would be great for my team, I'm 1 degree away from the person who is making the decision. So I think, depending on what the content is, I don't think it's always about getting directly to the decision maker. I think on a lot of platforms, if you want to go broader, you can get to someone who is 1 degree separated from the decision maker, somebody who can influence the decision maker, actually. So it's the same idea in some ways, like, advertising on children's television, which I'm fairly sure has a lot of laws around it now. But back when I was a child, the ads would say, go tell your parents that you want this toy. They're not saying go out and buy this toy because I'm a child, I don't have any money, but they know that I have sway over the decision maker in my household, in the same way that, anybody on a triathlon team, or anybody on a running team, or any teacher at a school would have access to whoever is making decisions about who's wearing what uniform.
All right, here's a question from Jen, which I think is a different question. Any tips on finding content to share on? So, let's say you don't really have content to share. Do you have any platforms or any ideas on where you can find content that you can share on your social media?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing to think about when we're thinking about finding content to share on social media is an idea called triage. So triage in financial systems is this. It's, you can buy something in one place for very cheap, and at the exact same time or instantaneously sell it at another place for a more expensive price. And whenever there's an opportunity for triage, people make a lot of money. This is also true in content, and you see it all the time. So think about places where there is a lack of a certain type of content, and then you could go to a platform where there's an abundance of that kind of content and reappropriate the content while giving credit. So an example that you see a lot of this is on video platforms like TikTok and Instagram Reels. People will take Reddit posts, and Reddit is, like a forum that has comment sections and people answer questions and those sort of things. People will take Reddit posts and post the text in a video and say, this is taken from Reddit. So they're crediting, they're not stealing, but they're also not creating, net new content, but they are seeing the benefits of it. So depending on what kind of content it is that you are hoping to find, I would say think about where you're already finding that content, and then think about finding a separate market or a separate platform where that content doesn't exist. So you might, for example, be a big user of Medium. For people that don't know, Medium is sort of where you can publish things independently. It's sort of like a blog, magazine, mix of those two things. But you might read a lot of Medium articles that are really interesting, that are giving you great tips about how to run businesses or whatever it might be. And, you know, sometimes on Medium, what you have is you have these big companies, and people from big companies will write content about what they've learned. So you could say what the designers of Apple learned designing the new iPhone. That content exists. You could take that content and, you know, repurpose it for LinkedIn and say, you know, here's the things that the designers from Apple learned while building the iPhone, and here's why I think these lessons are important. As long as you're adding something to it and then crediting where you got it from. You know, at the bottom you say, taken from, you know, Johnny Ives Medium or whatever it might be. Then, you know, you're just sourcing that same thing, something that, again, you know, is already successful. You already know people like it, and putting that on a new platform. So I think anywhere that you're already finding platform that you like, I would say is good content that you like, I would say is a good platform to find content. The question really is about where is the opportunity to repurpose that. So you can also do that in the inverse. You can say, I'm already on Instagram and I want to find good videos, or I want to find good images, or whatever it might be. And then you just have to look at, what are the video platforms? What are the image platforms? I would say that, you know, images and these sort of things are sort of easier to credit for and to be honest about. I would say, if you can, avoid using other people's videos, especially if it involves like their personality and their faces. But yes, I think for most content, you can very easily and very honestly, authentically repost it from one platform to another, and you're pretty much in the clear.
Another one that I use that works really well is called Flipboard. They also like a magazine, and then you can reshare on LinkedIn or whatever it is, you know. And again, it's sourcing good quality information for your clients and keeping that conversation going. So
yeah, I would say, sorry, just to add, I think it, and again, you know, like the way that you're doing it is perfect. I think, you know, just being very clear that you are not the person who's creating this content, or at very least that you're, you know, borrowing it from somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's so important to acknowledge that, you know, this is somebody else's content. Here's a question about TikTok. You know, this is a business based in the GTA. Do you recommend TikTok for hyper-local businesses? So if you want to target in a specific area, does TikTok work for that?
That's a great question. I don't think that TikTok would be my first recommendation for hyperlocal businesses. I think that, you know, it's sort of the least direct path to getting to people that are already in your local neighborhood. So no, I mean, who TikTok is useful for is, you know, if somebody's location is not extremely important to you, there is still obviously an opportunity to create sort of a community on TikTok based around hyper local content. But I think without having, you know, specifics about that, I would generally say that that's not going to be the most effective technique. Platforms around, you know, hyper local that are much easier to sort of optimize for would be things like Facebook groups, which people always forget about. But I think Facebook groups, if you're hyper local, is an incredible resource. Yeah, I would say anything that's algorithmic, like TikTok, for example, is not going to be the best for getting in touch with people in your specific local community, or at very least, it won't be the fastest way to get in touch with those people.
All right, then here's a really simple but a very important question. You know, what do you think are the best or the most effective posts that people are sharing out there that tend to get the best mileage for a small business?
That is a great question. I am a firm believer that the one strategy that all small businesses should be using is documentation. So, you know, the likelihood that you're going to be two things at once, which is a very successful and great business owner and a very successful and great social media content creator, is not very high. I think, you know, because we can all have access to social media, I think we we underestimate the gap between the average person and the very successful content creator who is gifted and talented and then worked really hard. You know, like the big YouTube stars and all these people. We all sort of look at them and think, oh, we could do a version of that. But here's what we can all do and what is all successful. I think, you know, documentation is the idea that if you are doing something for your business anyway, it is not any additional trouble for you to take out your cell phone, for example, and film that. The reason that it is great is because it is what you are already doing, and it is the content that is most closely related to your business. So the example that I always use is like, if you are a rug cleaning business, you are already cleaning rugs all day. So there's a couple things you can do, which you're probably already doing. You can take a photo before you clean the rug of what the rug looks like, and then wash the rug, and then take a photo after. And you can say, here's a before and after. Or you could extend that a little bit and just take videos periodically of the process and then post that. It's not like you're thinking, you know, maybe some of you are sitting there thinking, well, that's, you know, obvious, that's easy content or whatever. 99% of people should be doing that, but are not doing that, and extrapolates across to all businesses. So I think whatever it is that you actually provide as your product or your service, your content should be as closely related to what that product or service is. Because again, the question that people are going to be asking on social media, and this matters for businesses, if you just want to become a social media star and, you know, get 1 billion followers or whatever it might be, do what Mr. Beast does and give away Ferraris all day. That's fine. People will watch those videos. Amazing. Say, listen, we're going to go into the street in Oakville and we're going to give the next person we see a Ferrari. Great. People will watch that. I don't know how that's going to make you money as a business unless you're a tax broker or something. But what you really want to be doing for most of us is converting these people into customers. So when someone comes into our ecosystem, there's things that we want them to know about us. We want them to know who we are, where we are, what is it that we do? How can you benefit from what it is that I do? How can you become my customer? When we're looking at these things, we're always thinking about, well, how could it benefit me? One of the greatest examples is, you know, I think the chiropractic industry has seen a real boon because of the popularity of video platforms, because of the popularity of YouTube, because of the popularity of TikTok, of Instagram video, because before it was this niche thing where, you know, every few people would go to a chiropractor and they would crack your back or whatever it might be. And then they just started filming people getting their backs cracked and they say, wow, how does that feel? And people go, oh, I feel amazing. And I have had back pain for 25 years and now it's gone. And now everyone in the universe wants to go to a chiropractor anytime something, you know, hurts. That is the power of what documentation is. Those people were already giving those chiropractic sessions. Now there's chiropractors who hire actors to come get chiropractic services because it's easier than setting up to film their actual customers and getting waivers to sign off. That's how effective it is as a business tool. And, you know, people are watching it. So they have two streams of their business, actually, which is here's people who have watched these chiropractic videos and are now lining up out the door to get a chiropractic adjustment. And here's people who are just watching these YouTube videos and also making us millions of dollars in revenue. So whatever it is that you actually do in your business, I would say find a way to document that. And if people are saying, yeah, but how would I document that? The thing that I would say is if you were sending a video to a friend, or you were sending a video to a parent or to a child or to a cousin or to whoever, document it in that exact same way. So that's a great place to start. I think that the barrier of entry on social right now is so much lower than people think it is. So just think about if you were to, let's use the rug cleaning example. If your, let's say your partner messaged you and said, you know, I don't actually know what you do at work. Can you show me you cleaning a rug? Think about what you would do. You would show them the beginning. You would show them, oh, here's Sally is bringing out the forklift right now. And you would just show the process. Do it in that exact same way with that exact same authenticity. And you're going to have content that A, people are going to engage with, B, they're going to know who you are and what you do and whether or not you're any good at it. And C, you're going to have an endless stream of content that you can always, 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 always create. The inverse is so many small businesses start and they have their business and then they think, well, what are we going to do on social media? What content are we going to post? Where are we going to find photos? What ideas are we going to do? You're already doing the thing that people want to see. People want to see, when I'm paying for this, why am I paying for it? What am I doing? This works for every industry. And I think, I'm very passionate about the fact that that is what most people should be doing, is literally just showing people what it is that your business or service does.
And I think that is such simple, but such important advice. I mean, it's answered a couple of questions here. Ian was asking, where would you start? And I think that's exactly where you start. Just show people what you do on a daily basis. That's what people want to see, actually. It might be boring for you, but not boring for your clients at all. So
and the reality is that once you've posted a few of those, people will tell you what they would like to see also. So It's a great idea because it makes the content better for everyone.
I agree with you. One more question, a little bit different question, but I think quite an important one. What do you think about Google Business Page? The majority of Drenda says the majority of a new business, comes from a Google profile. So what do you think about, updating and, improving your Google Business Page?
I think this is such a great question because I think it's so underutilized, especially for local businesses. And the bar, I think, on Google My Business is so low that anytime somebody does something remotely outside of the norm, it is mind-blowing. So here's an example. If you're looking at whether or not a store is open, it shows the store's hours. Customers are impressed by things like seeing that you've recently updated the hours. So if they see that, today is Tuesday and you updated your hours on Monday, so I know with certainty that if I show up at your store, it's going to be open. It's like, this is the kind of thing that could convert a customer on Google My Business, which I'm saying that's how low the bar is. Another example, there's, when you travel around, you see in some cities, which I really love, people put emojis in their Google My Business name. So they'll put the business, and then after the business, they'll put an emoji. So if they're a wine shop, they'll say, Cynthia's wine shop, and then a little wine bottle emoji. It's just these things that just make you stand out, on this platform where everything is so boring. So I would say optimizing Google My Business, find everything that you can do. Google My Business allows you to post a bunch of stuff. So you could post, sales on Google My Business. You can post special promotions saying, you get this promotion specifically because you came through Google. Come into us and we'll give you 10% off, or we'll give you a free candy bar. Again, like, the bar is so low that if you do anything on Google My Business, you're going to see a massive, influx of increased conversion. So if you're already seeing things on Google My Business, I would say work out one tiny little extra give. So maybe you're constantly updating, or every week on a Wednesday, you do a little, new promotion. We'll give you 5% off, or we'll give you 10% off, or we'll give you a shake on the hand, or whatever it might be, because you've come in and you've told us that you came from Google.
I think that's such great advice. I remember when we first started, creating content for Digital Main Street, my goal was to get every single small business in Ontario onto Google My Business, because that's the basis of, that's how people are going to find you. If they're going to search for you, that's where they're going to find you, is on Google My Business. All right, so we're at the top of the hour. Just a couple of final comments, Marco, about social media and what works, so that we can end off this Q&A session.
Yeah, I think, when it comes to social, the thing that I always say is that people forget that really the key to success is being social. So I think, a lot of people already have the tools to be successful because you're already successful in your local community. I think focus on keeping things simple. So we're talking about content, simply document what you're doing, be consistent in posting. Just think about, why would people come back? Why would people want to see this? Why would they be interested in coming back? and then respect that relationship. If people signed up because they really want to see you do X, Y, and Z thing, keep doing that thing for them. I think workout platforms where, there is opportunity. So platforms that have algorithms like we talked about, or even platforms where there's opportunity for triage. So, everyone looks at the same platforms and says, how can I be successful on Instagram or TikTok or whatever it might be? I think look at, where your business or your market is underserved on the internet, and go there and create, the most consistent, interesting content that you possibly can. And that's how you're going to get people, coming to you. And once you get them to come to you, don't forget to bring them off those platforms, and get them into your own sort of funnel so that you can actually convert those people to customers, because business is not a popularity contest. What matters really is how many of those people are you going to convert into customers who are putting money in your bank account.
And I think that's great advice. Sometimes it's, that old vanity of getting followers when it's really, we want to get, more business. I just want to remind everyone that we got another webinar coming up in 2 weeks, and there I'm going to discuss on what you need to do to grow your business in 2023. So I encourage you to sign up for that webinar. Thank you very much, Marco, for this discussion this afternoon. I really enjoyed it, and hopefully we can do more of these in the new year. And thank you very much, everyone, for joining us this afternoon. Actually, JD, you made a great recommendation here at the end. He's asked for reviews and recommendations on Google My Business. I think that's great advice. Actually, on all, on your Facebook page, on your all of these type of things, on your LinkedIn, I think a great opportunity. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us this afternoon. Hopefully, you've learned a couple of things from Marco's answers, and we look forward to seeing you in the future again. Thank you very much, and have a great afternoon.
Thank you very much. Have a great day, everyone.